We're going to do the biblical characteristics of a good mom and a bad mom. It's a take on Proverbs, and basically what it does is contrast what a good wife is, what a bad wife is, what a good mom is, what a bad mom is. Now let me just introduce this very important subject by the fact that this is in no way intended to shame or to bring guilt or unwanted problems with any wife or mother. That's not my intent. My intent is simply to share what the Bible says makes for a good mother or a bad mother or a good wife or a bad wife. What you need to do as an adult is take this information, weigh it. If it has any merit to it, then do what you want with it, apply it, don't apply it. If it has no merit to it, just let it go in one ear and out the other. Okay? So let me just say that right off the bat. That's my desire. This is a difficult culture for mothers to live in and wives to live in. I understand that. So I just want to tell you my heart right at the beginning before I even start this. One of the greatest praise a mother can receive is not flowers, not a box of candy, or even a diamond ring. The greatest praise a mother can receive is the godly testimony displayed in the lives of her children. Moms, your life story is being written in the lives of your children. They are literally your walking epistle. An epistle is like a letter, okay? And the lives they walk represent you. It is said that if you want to know what a mother is like, look at her children. This is history. Men and women have built cities and empires that have achieved marvelous things. But it is the mothers who have built the men and women that have made the accomplishments. That calling for women is one of the highest and noblest commissions that God has ever given to human beings. To the mother, God entrusts the body, soul, and spirit of the little one to be developed within her being, to be nursed upon her breast, to be cradled in her loving arms, and to be shaped by her holy example, coupled with attitudes and character that makes for a real man or woman of God. John Wanamaker, the famous businessman, once said, "My first love was my mother, and my first home was on her breast. My first bed was her bosom. Leaning little arms upon her knees, I learned my first prayers. A bright lamp she lit in my soul that never dies down or goes out, even though the winds and waves of many years have swept over me. Sitting now in my mother's old armchair, I seem to feel the touch of her little hand on my brow, and I hear her voice as she smooths my hair and calls me her boy, her very own boy." Yes, the real tribute of a mother is not in things, but in the living modeled product that she has made of the child that God has loaned to her. Many, many mothers have been faithful to fulfill this task that God has given to them. An example of this is found in written and oral testimonies by some of the greatest men this world has ever known. Abraham Lincoln said, "All that I am or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother." Andrew Jackson said, "The memory of my mother and her teachers were the only capital that I had to start life with, and on that capital I made my way." John Quincy Adams said, "All that I am, my mother made me." D.L. Moody, The famous evangelist, he says, "My mother, all that is good in my life, I think, has come from her. And I've never come near Northfield," that's where his mother lived, "that I have not gotten anxious to reach home that I might see my mother." It is generally conceded that the greatest love of one human to another is the love of a mother. Mother's love is never exhausted, it never changes, it never tires. A father may turn his back on his child. Brothers and sisters may become enemies. Husbands may desert their wives and wives their husband. But a mother's love, never fails. Now, while a mother's love never fails, there are many moms who have not been the faithful mothers that God intended them to be. While it is true that not all children of good mothers turn out right, the possibility of a child getting the right start in life is greatly enhanced if the mother provides the right kind of example for her children. Mothers, when you live for the Lord, listen to me, when you live for the Lord, you provide a strong incentive for your children to choose the Christian way of life. Parental example is extremely powerful, especially by mothers. Throughout the book of Proverbs, we find an unbalanced, and this is unfortunate, contrast between good moms and bad, good wives and bad wives. Surprisingly, there are a number of references to the bad, but only a few to the good. I often wonder why this is. What is the difference between a good mother and a bad? What makes the kind of mother that will produce the character and qualities in her child that God desires? Well, we're going to look at some selected passages in Proverbs and see if we can't find some answers. First of all, the characteristics of a bad mom. If you want to take notes, it's a good time to do it. I'm going to go through in an outline fashion, and I'm going to give some commentary on each one. The characteristics of a bad mom. First of all, she is foolish. Proverbs 14:1 says this, "The wise mother builds her house, but the foolish tears it down with her own hands." A house is not always a home. And this verse is not talking about house construction, carpentry, bricklaying, but of home building. It's the knitting together of the family, the day-by-day routine of creating a happy and comfortable place for the family to live. By the way, the Hebrew word for foolish means dull, thick, and sluggish. The foolish mother of this verse is dull to wisdom, thick to correction, and sluggish in her response to God. The result is that destruction lies in every move she makes. The term in this verse, tears down, comes from a single Hebrew word meaning to overthrow, rebellion, to destroy. What this mother does is dismantle her house board by board, conversation by conversation, circumstance by circumstance, relationship by relationship. She literally takes it apart. Notice that the verse says, not with someone else's hands, but with her own. I've been in houses like this, and believe me, they're not safe for occupancy. Okay, so that's the first characteristic of a bad mom. She's foolish. She's not a wise woman. Second characteristic is she is boisterous. Proverbs 19 says, "The woman of folly is boisterous." By boisterous, the text does not mean excitable or energetic. Rather, the thought is one of commotion and turbulence. Picture a mother with an egg beater who suddenly lifts it out of a mixing bowl, whirling batter all over the kitchen, and you get something of the idea of a boisterous mom. She is the kind of mom who has no order in her life. Everything is all noise and chaos. Dogs are barking, The TV is going in one room, the radio is going in another, her house is in disarray. It is utter madness. It's a tension builder of the worst sort. Okay, so she is boisterous. She is also contentious. And Proverbs 21:9 says, it is better to live in a desert land than with a contentious and vexing wife and mother. In Proverbs 25:24, it says, it's better to live in the corner of a roof than in the house shared with a contentious woman. Proverbs 27:15 says, a constant dripping on a day of steady rain and a contentious woman are alike. Now, before I define what a contentious mother is, I want you to notice that this text says that it's better to live in two different locations than with a contentious woman. A desert land or a corner of a roof. Now, what did those two places have in common? Well, they are undesirable places to live in. And the rationale here is that it is better to be in an undesirable place than it is with a contentious woman. Why is that? What does it mean to be a contentious mother? Well, rather than define it in words, the text draws for us a picture of what she is like. Proverbs 27:15 says, a constant dripping on a day of steady rain. The constant dripping on a day of steady rain and a contentious woman are alike. They're similar. You know, every country has its own form of torture. And the French are known for using silence. The communists are known for isolating prisoners. But probably the worst kind of torture there is comes from, believe it or not, the Chinese. They strap a person down to a table, and then they drip a drop of water on his forehead, drip, 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 over and over until he literally goes crazy. That is the picture of a contentious wife or mother. She is a leaky faucet. And if you ever had one keep you awake at night, then you get the picture. Nag, 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 nag. Sounds like a dripping water, doesn't it? Charles Spurgeon, he had this to say, let mothers labor to make home the happiest place in the world. If they're always nagging and grumbling, they will lose their hold on their children, and the boys will be tempted to spend their evenings away from home. Home is the best place for boys and men, and a good mother is the soul of the home. The smile of a mother's face has enticed many into the right path, and the fear of bringing a tear into her eyes has called many a boys and men away from evil ways. The boy may have a heart of iron, but his mother can hold him like a magnet. The Lord never reckons a man to be so lost as long as he has a good mother alive. Great is thy power, O woman. See to it that it's used for him who thought of his mother, even in the agonies of his death, as Jesus was hanging on the cross. He told John, John, your mother, in referencing to his mother, mother, your son. A bad mom and wife, she's foolish, boisterous, and contentious. She is also sensuous, and not in a good way. In Proverbs 2:15-19, it says, this kind of woman paths are crooked, and she's devious in her ways. And Solomon is writing to his son to deliver you from this strange woman, from the adulteress, a married woman who flatters with her words. She leaves the companion of her youth, her husband, and forgets the covenant of her vows, marriage vows to God. For her house sinks down to death, and her tracks lead to the dead. None who go to her return again, nor did they reach the path to life. Now, there's a couple things that I make in observations when I read these verses. First of all, this is the kind of woman that's more concerned about making a career than caring for her children. In verse 15, it says that her paths are crooked, which means that her priorities are all screwed up. They're messed up. She is the kind of mother who would leave her children in the daycare for some stranger to do what God intended for her to do. She does this because her paths are crooked. As a sensuous woman, she is more motivated by externals of the world than by the principle of God's word. Now, there is nothing wrong with a mother having a career, so long as her priorities are straight and she has the career of God's choosing. One mom understood this, and her name was Mrs. Ray Merle, and she wrote this poem about having the right priorities. She said, "There are so many things to do that I would love to do, accomplishments both great and small, which I should follow through. I should read up on current things, events of far and near, but somehow I don't find the time because of my career. Now there's my music I enjoy, and I should travel to, legitimate, delightful things that others seem to do. But I have laid my dreams aside, for now my course is clear. These other things must wait, since I have chosen my career. It's the biggest job of all with gratifying ends, the best profession in the world, and pays big dividends. I'm a mother, thanks to God. 4 children I must rear. That brings a challenge to my heart, and this is my career." Unlike the sensual mother, this mother has her priorities straight. But it's easy for mothers to get distracted and from what God has called them to do, even in the name of God, believe it or not. A woman once wrote to an evangelist after an evangelistic campaign to tell him that she had been converted by one of his messages and she felt called into the ministry. She said, "The problem, Brother Smith, is that I got 12 children at home. What shall I do?" And she received this reply from the wise evangelist: "My dear lady, I'm happy to hear that you have been saved and been called into the ministry. But I'm even more delighted to know that God has already provided you with a congregation of 12. And that's true. Her biggest ministry was right there at home, and yet she wanted to go out somewhere else. How easy it is for a lot of moms to get distracted in that way. And while not all moms are distracted by a call to minister or preach, probably the greatest distraction today is keeping mothers from fulfilling their duties, the idea that they need to make money to make ends meet. And that's not true, and that has never been true. Let me explain that to you. God will never call you to do something that he will not provide you with resources to do. If God gives you children, then he's also given you the ability to train them up in the fear and knowledge of him, no matter what you may have. This is what John Newton's mother did. In fact, she was so poor that she just could barely provide the basic necessities, but she did have the ability to be a godly example and to pray. And if you know anything about John Newton, he was a slave trader. He was a very wicked man. And his mother continued to pray for him, even though he was doing a lot of really bad things, until finally he came to know the Lord. And you know that he was an amazing man, because he's the one that gave us the song, Amazing Grace. He's the one that wrote that song. And he can attribute it all back to his mom, who was a very godly mother. See, the real problem with unsatisfied mothers lies all too often, and the real problem is not money, it's an unsurrendered will to do God's calling. The real issue here is one of trust. If you trust and honor God and honor Him by doing what He gave you children to do, He's going to make a way. I don't know how, but He will. I have seen this true in my life. I have seen this all over the world. And He can make it happen for you if you trust Him. Okay, so a bad wife and a bad mother is one that carries those kind of characteristics of being contentious, boisterous, and even more so, she's not only a woman that looks and has her priorities screwed up and want to choose a career instead of her children, but she's also one that's more concerned with her own pleasure than keeping her word to God. In Proverbs 2:17, it says that this is the kind of woman that leaves the companion of her youth, and she forgets the covenant of her God. I don't know how many women I have talked to who have left their husbands to go be with some other man or go run off with some career. And I don't have much respect for these kind of women. They think the grass is greener on the other side, and it's not. And they find out often later on, too late, after they become polluted, that they made a really bad choice. I saw a woman she was the wife of a president of a Bible college, and she was hanging around, hanging with a lot of these high socialites, and they convinced her that she was sacrificing way too much and that she could have a better life if she left her husband, and she did. She left her husband and her kids. She ran off with some young guy. She ended up becoming a drunk. A couple years later, they were having a reunion at the college. She came there and confessed before the whole thing. But by then, she pretty well ruined her life and home. She was never the same again. Her husband ended up getting married to a godly woman. And, she made a mess of her life. She thought she was going to have a better life, and she didn't. You make a commitment to a man. You vow to be with him through thick and thin. Okay? And you stick it out. I have women that come to me and they tell me, well, hey, I'm dating now, I'm divorced. And I always tell them this. I go back and be with your husband. Go reconcile. Well, he did this and he did that. Yeah, okay, well, go help him. But if they don't have good vows to the husband, they're not going to be good examples to their kids. Okay, because they're teaching their kids when things get tough, to just leave. Okay, that's my own opinion, apart from what Proverbs is saying here. But this is what it says that they do. The sensuous mother is most definitely a contemporary woman. She is selfish and thinks of herself before her family. She's the one that likes to listen to commercials to tell her to do something or buy something because she's worth it. The sensuous mother is led by her feelings, not by fate. She's the kind of woman that says she is leaving the father of her children because she doesn't love him anymore. She does not understand that love is a commitment, a vow, not a feeling. There's a lot of sad stories that happen as a result of that. And the tragedy of the sensuous mother, as we see all over this country, is seen in Proverbs 2:18 and 19. It says, for her house sinks down to death, and her tracks lead to the dead. None who go to her return again, nor do they reach the path of life. The sensuous mother will never know all that God intended for her. And unfortunately, as it says in verse 18, her house, her family, will sink down to death along with her. What is a bad mom like? She is boisterous. She is contentious. She is sensuous. She is very foolish. Okay, let's get that out of the way. Let's look at the characteristics of a good mom and a good wife. We're going to find a lot of this in Proverbs 31. Now, I know a lot of women, they hate to see this because they think that this Proverbs 31 woman is unattainable. She's some kind of bionic mom. And that's not true at all. Okay, but let's look at some of the characteristics of what this mom is like, and hopefully balance out a lot of what the Proverbs and a lot of the Bible says about bad and poor moms and wives. First of all, and if you want to make a list, there's a lot more things here than it is of bad. She is valuable. And Proverbs 31:10 says this, an excellent wife or mother who can find, for her worth is far above jewels. No amount of money or anything can compare to the value of having an excellent wife and mom. It just does not compare. In other parts of the Bible, it calls her a treasure that something is desirable to find and keep. What do men do with a good treasure? They take care of it, okay? They protect it. But if they find out what they got is not a treasure, they're probably not going to do those two things, okay? She's also an asset, not a liability. Proverbs 31:11, the heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She's a help, not a millstone around his neck. I know a lot of wives that, geez, come on. And they just bring their husbands down to no end, but not this kind of wife. She's the one that builds them up. Even with all his faults, all his imperfection, all his flaws, she's an asset to him. And you'll see, and you've heard the old saying that if you see a man really successful, it's probably because he's got a great wife and great mom behind him. She's also industrious. Proverbs 31:13, she looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She's a good worker. She's a bargain hunter. She doesn't just spend money. I've known women, well, that they've had things given to them all their lives. They break out, we just buy another one. They don't take care of things. They don't maintain things. You know, they treat things like if they're just disposable. They don't do any maintenance. Not this kind of woman. She's very industrious, okay? And she works really hard. She's the one that shows up at a garage sale or at the flea market. She's the one that knows how to do delayed gratification. I'm not going to buy this car because it just impressed. I don't need an experience. I need transportation to get my kids to places, to get groceries, to go on certain trips with the family. This is the kind of woman she is. She's also humble. Proverbs 31:15, she rises also while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her maiden. Even though she has maids and people to help her, she feeds them and takes care of them, just like if they're family members. My mom used to do that. My grandmother did that. You know, I watched them do that. That's a kind of a humble woman that will also seek to take care of the needs of others. She is also not afraid of work. In Proverbs 31:16-19 says she considers a field and buys it. From her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She doesn't need to go to aerobics class. She's a hard worker. The reason why so many women have to go to yoga and do all these other kind of things is because they don't work. Okay? If they're hard workers at house and around the home and gardening and painting and doing, she can do all kind of things. They're going to build their own strength naturally and make money in return instead of having to pay money. Okay? She senses that her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches out her hands to the staff and her hands grasp the spindle. This woman is a hard worker. She also has a business head. She doesn't mind mopping the floor, picking sugar beets out in the field, if that's what the call is for. She is skilled. You know, she may not be able to play the piano, but she knows how to sew. She knows how to cook. Okay? And she knows how to make you laugh at home and feel like you're really important and special. She's also compassionate. She extends her hands to the poor, and she stretches out her hands to the needy. This mom is not so busy with her own life that she forgets the needs of others. She's also secure and prepared for the future. It says in Proverbs 31:21, she is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. Now, it rarely snows in Palestine, where this Proverbs was written. And but even if it snowed there, this woman is prepared for it. She's balanced. In Proverbs 31:20, she makes covering for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Even though she provides for her family, she also knows how to take care of herself. She is a helpmeet. And this to me is, for men, is really crucial. Her husband is known at the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. They all know who his wife is. Okay, and they respect him. Man, you got a great wife. Not because of her of looks, like a lot of men tend to put out, trophy wives. Not like that. But know that this person has a real helpmeet, somebody that's really there for him through thick and thin. The mom enhances the father of her children. She completes him. She doesn't compete with him. She completes him, not competes with him. She completes him. Okay? Very important. She is thrifty. She makes linen gardens and sells them and supply belts to the tradesmen. She not only makes money for her family and herself, but she also makes clothes to get some extra pocket money. I once told this woman to do that, and she thought I was stupid. I said, look, you got these resources, so why don't you do this, and you can make some extra money and do some extra things. She wasn't this kind of woman, though. And she thought what I told her was foolish. She is wise. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. This is not an airhead. This is no dumb blonde or brunette. Okay? This is no AOC or Pelosi. This is a woman that I can sit and listen to. Listen to Miss Elsie in my life, my Aunt Linda in my life, my grandmother in my life, that I could go and sit and listen to for hours. I would rather go and sit with them than to go to some gala or some opera or some. I just want to go in here and listen to the wisdom that comes out of them, because I know that I'm there. I'm in the presence of God. Okay? She's also a master of her time. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. This woman knows how to use a day timer. She knows that the day is evil, so she uses her time wisely. She is praised. Her children rise up and bless her husband also, and he praises her, saying this, many daughters have done nobly, but wife, you excel them all. That's the kind of praise she gets from her husband because of the kind of woman and mom she is. Her children, man, they know how to praise her with reality and joy, don't they? She is God conscious. Proverbs 31:30, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. This woman has an inner beauty. This wife and mom has an inner beauty that can only come with walking with the Lord and practicing the presence of God in her daily life, day in and day out. And lastly, she is rewarded. Proverbs 31:31, give her the product of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. That's where all the people are. They recognize this. The greatest praise a mother can receive is not flowers, as I said earlier, or a box of candy, or even a diamond ring. The greatest praise a mother can receive is the godly testimony displayed in the lives of her children and the praise that comes from her husband. Let me just say at this point that the characteristics of Proverbs 31 woman is, it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen overnight. The fact of the matter is, it takes years to develop all the characteristics that are seen in the Proverbs 31 woman. And this process usually begins, and listen very carefully here, when older, wiser mothers who have walked with God through the years pass on these characteristics to their children. This can be seen in 2 Timothy 1:5, and Paul is saying this, I have been reminded of your sincere faith, talking to Timothy, which first lived in your grandmother Lois, and then in your mother Eunice, and I'm persuaded now lives in you also. Look at how it was passed down, how the godly example passed down. I want you to notice that because the grandmother Lois was faithful, her daughter Eunice was faithful, and the son Timothy was also faithful. 3 generations of Christian influence was passed on because the grandmother Lois took on her responsibility as a homemaker and a wife very seriously, rather than some other career or some other passion. Almost invariably, great men have had great mothers. And unfortunately, wicked men have had bad mothers. Mothers who are foolish, contentious, boisterous, and sensuous. One such mother was Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah. In 2 Corinthians 22, we have testimony of this. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri. He also walked in the ways of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor, listen to this, to do wickedly. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father, to his destruction. Isn't that sad? Let me ask you something. What kind of mom have you been? What kind of wife have you been? Have you been displaying the characteristics of a good or a bad one? Howard Hendricks, one of my professors at Dallas Seminary, is now gone on to be with the Lord. He said that senior citizens reflecting back on the job they did as a parent and as a husband or as a wife either look back with great fulfillment or with great resentment. You get to the end of your life, and I've heard parents say to their children, I wish to God, some of them say, that you were never born. There is no reality for this kind of a woman, only a sad reminder of what it could have been if she had been faithful to fulfill her responsibility as a mom. Granted, it's hard work and you sacrifice a lot, especially in this day and age that we live in, but really there's no other way. Oh, that God might give us more moms and wives whose chief concern is the rearing of children for righteousness, who make the home a little corner of heaven while they're still on earth. Not women with brazen looks, heavy painted faces, and foul language. Not women whose bodies are adorned for seducement, but mothers whose gentle hands speak of sacrificial labor for their families, whose loving voices sing softly of Jesus and his love, and who uphold many through their prayers. Oh, that God might give us mothers, Christian mothers and wives, with wisdom, strength, character, and dedication to God, that may find their praise in the lives of their children, and someday hear these words from God, well done, thou faithful servant. God bless you all.